Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Have you ever wondered what games you should sell or you should use? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Find out on our top 10 list what games you cannot miss. Don't forget to subscribe to Purge Reviews.
Vikings, the board game, based off the History Channel television program, not to be confused with the Vikings, which is also a board game, but not based off the television show. So they had to go with the generic name because that's the name of the show, but they put the board game on it to differentiate it, I hope, from the other Vikings game. I don't watch the show, although it is on my to-do list to watch it. This game is not going to make me want to watch the show. I got done playing this, and we were just kind of like, did somebody play this game? It's because it's not a mass market game. Okay, this is not something you're going to sell at Walmart, Best Buy. The rule book is horrendous. Just terrible. The first phase of the game, winter. The second phase of the game, summer. Guess what comes first? Winter? Nope. Summer. Summer comes first. Why would they explain the second half of the game first? Okay. The reason why is because the first time you play it, you're supposed to skip the winter stage. I guess that makes sense, although the second time and the 1,000th time you play it, it won't be in order. Okay, you heard me right. The good news is, the reason why they did this is because you will not play this the second time. So you'll never need it in order. It's a bizarre game, okay? So one would think it was a thematic game because of the theme and the show, and it's not. The only place this show really shows up is on the hero cards, and maybe the seer cards. You got issues all the way around. So the seer cards, you got issues with the icons being too small, the font being too small, very confusing wording. Sometimes we just, like, there's one where we had to do this. If you do it during your turn, then you had to go to landfall, but if you already did it, there's a lot of, like, if you did this, but there's no way to track that you did that. That's going to be totally confusing until you see the flow of the game. But to give you an example, if you went to landfall, you get 4 additional points or whatever. But there's no way to track if you went to landfall. We just have to kind of remember. And I guess it isn't that hard to remember, but it is. It has this weird thing where, like, you go in the sea, but you have to get provisions, and then when you go to the sea, you flip a tile over, and you're going to lose time and provisions, but you don't know what. So it's really hard to plan. You try to get as many provisions as possible, but the problem is your ship can only hold so much, and once you get to land, you're not sure what you're going to need when you get over there either. Sure, after the first round, there's 3 rounds of game, you will know what's on land 1 tiles, but then by that point, land 2 tiles are available, and you really want land 2 tiles. So, okay. Everything you do costs you time, which is okay, because that's a tracker. One thing I did like about the game was the whole Red November mechanic, where how many days you have left, how much time is the order. So, Krautwagen use a little bit of this, where if you have the most days and it's your turn, if you just use 1 and everybody else is 4 away, then it's still your turn till you catch up, which is kind of neat. Although most things cost between 1 and 4 days, with a lot of them costing 2 and 3, so we all kind of stayed hovered together anyway. The rulebook is terrible in explaining what things are and how they score, and everything's out of order. For example, I'll show you this in the rulebook, but the end of summer is like, there's some rules for that. 2 pages in, but the end of summer isn't till like the 6th page in, and it's not listed there either. So you have to like catch it here and here to be the end of summer, and it's just really bizarre. What the game lacked most is probably fun. I didn't find it fun to go get provisions and kind of guess what I needed, and then because I guessed wrong, you're going to score all these points, and because you guessed right, you're going to score a bunch of points, and because I guessed wrong, I'm not going to score points. I guess when somebody goes through their path, you could go through their path with them. You want to be the one flipping tiles over because you get extra points for that. So you get the exploration points. Whoever has the most gets 3 victory points at the end of the round. Or I guess at the beginning of the round. At the beginning of the next round. But if you just follow somebody, you're going to give up those points, but maybe it's safer. Maybe that's a decision. I don't know. I didn't find it very interesting. None of us did. There really isn't a whole lot of player interaction besides that. I mean, you might flip a tile over, and it might be like, you need 4 warriors, and 2 of them are going to die. Well, how was I even supposed to know that was going to be there? I guess knowing the possible tiles would help out. It was all these little things about... And every round, the sea, even though you already went across the sea, is shuffled back up face down and is random again. I think I might have liked it better if you could have planned the game as you went, but that takes away from what the game is, which is just randomness or hoping you guess correctly. Maybe that's not the correct terminology for randomness, but hoping you guessed correctly, and if you did, you're there. At the end of the day, it just didn't... It added up to a bunch of problems, and it wasn't very fun figuring them out. One of us at the table, chatting to be Pedro, ended up getting some of the characters that he liked from the show, and that part was exciting to him. And that's always exciting at a game when you watch the show and you get to be those characters. So, wasn't a whole lot interesting going on. So, I'm going to definitely tell you to skip this one, and if you just are a huge fan of the show, to try it out. But otherwise, it's an automatic purge. Here are the components for Vikings, the board game. You're going to have a pretty good sized box. I like these kind of boxes. They're very nice and durable. A little bit shiny, but I like that. You're going to get a nice big rule book. You are going to get advertisements for other Catalyst games. Some more role-playing games. You're going to get these player aids. They're all the same except for the color is a little bit different. And they're a little bit thin. I mean, they're not going to rip. They're paper, not cardboard. But, they just lay on the board, so it's not a huge deal. You're going to get your village tile, which is the same for all games. And these are different things. You can see how bland it is. And these count as days icons for everything. So that's the village. Let me see. This is what the insert will look like inside. A place for everything, I suppose. This is going to be the board that you use for the trading market. This is going to be the initiative order, places for your decks, and then this is where the goods will be. This is the price that will be, and you can see the goods go across it. And the scoring track is around it. You're going to get a number of these sea tiles. And they will have things like, this is how they go. So minus a day, minus a food, and minus a fabric. And they'll have different things on them. And you can see very unthematic, just a bunch of icons. And they're blue, I guess. And then you're going to get a number of these land tiles. You have 1, 2s, and 3s. These just happen to be 3s. And then everything will have how many days it takes for these white signs. And then you'll have what it does. So minus 2 days, but you can go to the trading post, which is on that board. Minus 3, you need 3 heroes. Or you can draw 3 heroes. This gives you 4 food. So everything's really bland. They're just brown or blue for the sea, and they have icons with plus or minus. Nothing really to see there. You are going to get a number of heroes. And I guess that's the logo from the show. You will have the name of the person, a picture from the show, a quote here. Trust me, Lord, I will take very close care of your interests, and then what they do. And you will have a number of these. King Horik. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know all of these people, but I'm assuming all the major characters and some of the minor characters are in here. Leaf. Probably know him from history. And you attain these through a drafting mechanism, so I mean that's what they are. Reduce food cost on entered seed tiles by 1. So they help you in different ways. These are heroes. First round you can have 1, second round you can have 2, third round you can have 3. You have these seer cards. This is where you're gonna be able to score some victory points. And it just has a saying at the front, on the top, and a picture from the show. And then let me kind of show you one of these. So these icons, they're so tiny. I don't know if it shows up, but so tiny. These are all the goods you have to have. At the bottom of each of these is going to tell you whether they're hard or medium, easy. These are the icons that are required. It's insane when you look at this and you play the game. And if you complete it in the next summer, you get this. And if you return, so if you complete it in the winter, you get this, I think. And if you return during the summer, you get this. It's how many victory points it's worth. And if you have some on the left, you give these up. These you just have to do or have. You don't give the ones on the right up. But they're really small. The font is really small on these. And they spend a lot of time with this border. And it's just really tiny. So that was my big complaint with those. You will get some reference cards that will give you explanations of all the icons, which is fairly helpful. Although it doesn't really matter what they're called. The game is so abstract. Kind of one of the worst pieces. This is going to be like, everybody's going to get 4 or 5 of these. These are your ships. These are your trackers, initiative. These are everything. So very unthematic. Just a colored piece of wood. For a licensed game, the components are lacking of theme. And you're going to have these victory points. You got coins that are cardboard. You're going to have a dice, a bunch of cubes that represent goods that you're getting. This is your gold stash and reward that you're... I mean, it's all just... You can see here, it's all very generic and just very blah. So, the components, I mean, the quality is nice. These tiles are very thick. I mean, this is one tile here. That's very, very thick. I had a problem with a lot of these kind of chippings. You don't want to know what these are, but you can kind of see there. I had a lot of these chip and come off. And here's some mountains that you have. All 5. Overall, I would say it's a hit. I mean, for such a game that you want to be so thematic, it's not. So be it. Let's talk about these rules for a second. You get an oversized book. The back has a reference. That's all nice. I like the component list with pictures, etc. I like all that. You get 2 setups for the game. One for your first time and one for after that. Which takes up a lot of pages and pictures. I don't know why they just... The reason why they didn't want you to start out the first time is they didn't want you bidding on things. But I think that's part of the process of learning. I stated this before, but the problem with the game is it starts with the second phase of the game, the summer phase. So the summer phase before the winter phase. So you have to like go up here to find the winter to see how to play it, and you go back. Which is the order for every time you play after that first time. And most gamers are probably just going to skip that introductory game, to be honest. And this isn't a mainstream game, so I'm not sure why they did that. But you could live with it. Here on page 10... you have what to do at the end of a summer season. Great. But the rest of this is the summer season. And this is the little paragraph right here is the end of summer season with no reference to this. Not even a look back on page 10. Don't forget about page 10, which is super annoying. This book is poorly organized. It's almost like their goal was to be as poorly organized. The winter season is so convoluted, it makes so little sense. And what you're doing in the winter season doesn't always fly with what's on a card and how to track these things. And it's very confusing, and you have these long example explanations that I suppose make it a little bit easier, but make it very daunting to read. You do get an appendix of the heroes. That's okay. To me, this rulebook is a huge failure in this game. It's terrible. One of the worst rulebooks I've ever seen in my life. And look, I love licensed games. I love them. I would take a good licensed game over a good unlicensed game. That's just how I am. You got Star Wars on it, Star Trek. I'm probably going to try it out. Vikings, I'm going to try it out. The Spartacus one, I try it out. A license will draw me in. This is terrible. It's not even a mainstream type of terrible. They were definitely going for gamers on this game and failed miserably with this rule book. Okay, so this is somewhat what the game would look like set up. You're going to have more sea tiles than this, and these land tiles will be pushed back, but I wanted to get it all in frame and show you kind of how it works. I'll go through the winter stage first, but it's not tremendously going to make sense right now, but during the winter stage, you can complete these seer cards, which means you give up the icons on the left. This is probably a better example. You give up these icons, you got to have these. You get something a lot of times, and you get the victory points. So you can do that in the winter. Whoever has the most exploration tokens, which is this track across here, whoever in the previous round had the most will get 3 victory points. Whatever these exploration tokens you have or points, you can convert these into gold or victory points. You'll add things to the trade house, which I showed you in the component overview. You're gonna place out some. It's number of players plus 1 of these heroes, and you're gonna bid money to see who has first initiative, or the person can choose what initiative they are. So then, whoever has first place in initiative will choose their hero card. Everybody will get one. First round you can have 1, second round 2, third round 3, and then you're gonna buy up here. On the resource mark, whatever resources happen to be out, there'll be cubes. You can buy it based on the price and fill your ships up. Now, each ship is going to have a number of spaces they can fill up. And that's all the stuff. But you can buy here. And you'll do this last order. So whoever's last in initiative will buy first. Think Power Grid. And then we'll come back down, and there'll be the number of seer cards, number of players plus 1, and everybody will get another seer card. And these are things you do to score victory points. So you'll get a new one, and everybody will get a new one, and one will be discarded. Then what you'll do is, I'll just show you this really quickly. When the first round's 30, then you give everybody enough time. So the way the game is going to work is everybody's going to give up. So everybody starts at 35 in the second round. You're going to give up time to do things. And whoever's last place in time, whoever has the most time, will then go next. And that's the initial order. The ties will be done by the initiative order. So let me show you how the game works mostly. That's really just like a refill stage, but that's how you get more heroes and seers. You bid to be in order on initiative, and then whoever's first will get hero cards. Whoever's last will get trades first, and then whoever's first will get seer cards first. And that's the main component. There are a few scoring opportunities. So what you're going to do on your turn, this is going to be your boat. You're very thematic for a licensed game, your boat. You can move it up here in the village, and you can do any of these actions. And you don't have to go like 1, 2, 3. You can just go wherever you want. So this icon means you lose time. So you'll move down on what many people think is a scoring trick. It is not. You'll move down and give up days. Okay? So you give up days, and this one, for example, you get a food. This one you get 2 gold. This one you get 3 fabric, a cachet, and you get some warriors. Pretty easy. You get more heroes and change your heroes out here. This is where you get your rune stones. This is where you can turn in your seer cards right here. If you find any spoils, if you bring it back to the Jarl, you're going to get more gold/victory points than you would normally. So this is how you fill your ship up if during the winter season you didn't get what you wanted at the trading zone, or if there's some things you want to like bring a mission back. And if you look at this, so this one right here, it says if you complete it, you get a rune stone, which that means during the winter. But if you return, which means coming back to the home, next summer season, the deepest land tiles have -1 day. So it'll save you a lot of time, and you get the rune stone. So doing it during the summer season can be and then you get 3 victory points for each card that you have with the seer. And that can be very powerful. I don't expect a lot of that to make sense, but just know that when you go to the village, you can go anywhere you want up here, and you give up the days and you get the resources. And the book does a fairly good job if referencing what those things do. So once you have your ship filled up with cubes or whatever you want, you will come over here and flip over a tile, and then you will do it. Okay? So everybody, let me explain this. I think this might be helpful. So this is where you put your cubes of all the stuff that you have. And this, every time you do an exploration, like that one was... If I'm the one that flips it over and I have all the resources to pay here, in this case 2 days and 3 food, then my marker, which is just like this, will go up 1, and then I would have an exploration. If I go on one that's already been explored, I don't get the exploration point. And that's important because whoever has the most exploration points at the winter phase gets 3 victory points, and then you can convert those exploration points into gold and or victory points. It has a rich get richer mechanic in this. It's not a whole lot of way around it. So if I do that, then I can continue on and I pay that. And usually, like I said, this is going to be much bigger than what's sitting here. So if I went here, I'd pay 2 days of food and 2 fabric. And what you're really trying to do is get to these lands. So these lands are what you're trying to get to. This one costs 3 days and I get 2 food. That's going to be important because you're going to want to get back. And when I want to go back, I have to pay this stuff. And some of my hero cards will help lessen that. If I go here, it's 2 days and I get a warrior. And this is a big one. So this is how you get stuff. It's costing me 3 days. Raid 3 means I have to have 3 warriors, but I have to have 2 die. So of the 3 I had, or at least 3 I had, 2 of them are going to die, and I get a stash. Now when we were playing the game, and this may have just been us, but there's a whole thing about these seer cards, how many victory points they got. I found that going to somewhere like this and getting the stash is a great way, because when you come up to the Jarl, you get 5 victory points per stash. So if I could get 2 or 3 of these stashes saved up, I can go back on one turn and get 15, which is so much easier than doing all of this. It doesn't seem like a lot, but this is a tremendous amount of stuff to do. It's a medium weight for 15 victory points. So I found doing the stash and going back up to the Jarl to be extremely overpowered. But that we didn't play this a tremendous amount, so maybe that's not true, but we found it to be very powerful. And that's the game. You're taking this little block of wood, and you're randomly popping these over, and hoping it's what you're looking for. Now, if you really wanted this stash, and it was, now mind you, the board's going to be bigger than this, and that raid is now over there, and you just happen to be over here, you know, you're not going to make it back over to this side. It's just not going to be enough days. Because you only have first round 30 days, you know, and this is a lot smaller, so let's say you spent 10 just getting the land, and maybe a few up here getting stuff to go, and you know, you're just not going to have enough to get all the way over there. That's the game. That's it. You're right. Flipping over tiles, hoping you have the resources to give up. If you don't, there's a penalty for you, either victory points or days. And on these land tiles, you get stuff. I mean, that's the game. And the whole time, you're trying to fulfill these very, very small icons, which probably aren't even the most powerful thing or worth the most victory points on the board. I hope that I've done a fairly good job, at least giving you an idea if you sit down and maybe read the rule book. But this is Vikings, the board game. Who should buy this game? Really, honestly, you're extreme fans of the show. If you're just a really big fan of the show and you buy an exorbitant amount of board games and you really want to try this game out, try it out, don't buy it. If this is going to be collector's items for you and you just want to have this, and I've been prone to do that with some of my favorite shows, where I just buy it because I like the show, this is probably that game. I can't imagine too many people sitting down and saying, man, this is a fun game. And normally when I review games, some people may disagree with me, but I feel like I can find something in it. I'll be like, I'll recommend it for these people. Or if you're this type of gamer, maybe this is something you want to look at. Even if it's not for me, even if I purge it. This, unfortunately, is one of those games that I don't know that I can recommend to anyone. I mean, if you're a fan of the show, maybe that's cutting it loose. If you like really punishing games, but punishing you for things that are out of your control, like you just guessed wrong. You brought the wrong amount of food, but you didn't know. I mean, everybody else at the table is like, you did a great job. It's a lot of food. You just didn't bring enough because of how the tiles flipped over. If that's fun to you, so be it. This might be your game, but it was an exercise in frustration and boredom for me. So I'm going to say just for the biggest fans of Vikings, the TV show, and leave it at that. And I'll be honest, this might be one of my sternest reviews or my most negative reviews. Maybe because not being a fan of the show, my expectations were high, but I do plan on watching the show, and I was a little bit excited to have a Vikings game, which would draw my wife in to play it with me, and she did play it with me. And it's just a bust. It's just a bust, and I wish they would have went a different direction.